right. Thank you all for coming to our live stream panel on live streaming. My name is John Zimmerman. I'm the president of the Greater Philadelphia Videography Association. And to my left here is Justin, our immediate past president.
How you doing?
We're really excited about this. You know, we're living in the age of COVID-19 where social distancing is a high priority. So we really took it upon ourselves to make sure that we do this in the safest way possible. And obviously being many miles away via live stream is the best way to do that. So yeah, we have an excellent, amazing panel that we have today of some of the best experts in the field. Longtime members and really good guys. We're very excited about this. We'll be taking your questions at the end of the panel. So feel free to comment on the Facebook page. Start writing those questions down. We're really excited about that part. Yeah, the GPVA, just so everybody knows, is the Greater Philadelphia Videography Association. We're a professional organization of videographers and video professionals. And we've been around for about 25 years. Our big priorities are community and education and trying to, you know, build the best community of awesome videographers we possibly can. So I'd love to toss this over to Justin. He has some great things to say, and then we're going to move from there.
Thank you, John. Yeah, we have been around since the 90s, and obviously in the time we're in right now, you know, things are pretty hard for our community, and we understand that. And our goal is to still try to provide education, and as we're all kind of trying to figure out what's going to happen here with COVID-19. I know most of our membership is in the event space and does event video and corporate video, and obviously we've seen that kind of the rug's kind of been pulled out from under us over the last few weeks for that. And we thought streaming is a good first topic for our virtual events, because once events come back, there's going to be a need for this service, because we're not going to have people are going to be kind of afraid in some cases to go out and attend events. So I think this is a good forum. So we're going to provide as much information as we can, and I think as you know, as we move forward, you know, you as a contractor or as a business owner, it's really on you to find out what, you know, to be informed, and I think that's really critical right now. I mean, it's hard because we're all sitting at home, and a lot of us you know, don't have any work right now, but it's important that we're up to date on what's going on, what the regulations are around COVID-19, but also what's available to us as individuals and business owners in the way of money and different things that are coming out, because again, knowledge is super important, and it's hard because you know, we're not accountants, and we're not bankers, but we're having to educate ourselves in a lot of areas that we weren't wasn't things we need to know about before. But so spend that time on that, and then also obviously trying to pivot your business to different things that you can try to potentially use to make money as things start to come back. And I hope this panel will be one way to give some of that information about one method, which is adding streaming potentially to your portfolio of services. So now I guess we're going to go in and introduce our panel for today, and I'll let John do that, and then let them speak for themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm just going to go quick around and give everybody's name, and then I'll give everybody a moment to kind of introduce themselves. We have Chad Edwards from Invica. We have Jim Batty from JB Productions. Brad Seecof from Metramedia Solutions from Studios. Eric Gibson from Active Image Media, and we have Tom MaCoy, who's also very kind enough to host us and help us with the technical end of this today. So yeah, why don't we start with Chad and give everybody a couple minutes to kind of do their thing.
Well, thanks for having me. First of all, guys, I appreciate it. I think this is a great opportunity for people to get a new look at the business with what we're facing here with the coronavirus. But I own a company called Invica. We're based out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Most of our work is up and down the East Coast, but we specialize in multi-camera production. So I know a lot of this is streaming. We do probably about 80% of our business is streaming. Used to be broadcast television. So most of what I do is live sports, concerts, festivals, and stuff like that. But we do single camera productions that we stream and stuff like that. So I'm real excited to be able to be a part of this and talk about some of the corporate part of this as well. So again, just thanks for having me on this panel today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Hi, my name is Jim Batty from JB Productions, and basically I'm the Eastern version of Chad next to me. We do pretty much the same thing. Our big claim to fame for streaming is the regattas in Philadelphia. We do the PSRAs the first Sunday of May. The second Sunday we do the Dadville Regatta and the Stotesbury, which is the third Sunday. We run 2.5 miles of fiber optic cable on the river with up to 7 cameras with live feed, drone communications, so on and so forth. That's how we got our chops, because there's no internet along the river. So we specialize in bonded cellular, and basically we back everybody up. We also do single cameras and things like that for bar and bat mitzvahs, weddings, so on and so forth. We're just a good resource if you ever need some backup on something or have any questions. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brad Seecof from Metramedia Broadcasting and Studios. Our main business is live streaming and broadcast. We have operations in New York, DC, Los Angeles, and Philadelphia. We do about 250 live streams a year, everything from single laptop 1 cameras up to 20 cameras. We do a lot of the live streaming for the fireworks and the shows like the Pitbull show that was done in New York, a lot of corporate streaming. So basically anything from a wedding, mitzvah live stream all the way up to massive corporations we do. We have 6 live broadcast trucks along with our regular studios and also our mobile units. So pretty much live streaming is what we eat and breathe, and that's what we do.
My name's Eric Gibson. I work for Active Image Media. We're out of Springfield, Delaware County. We started live streaming events that we were covering for, to sell DVDs or MP4s, or for event coverage for overflow to, for like a graduation where they would send the video into the auditorium. So we branched out from there and started live streaming, mostly single camera, but we've done some multi-camera shoots. We've been doing it for a couple of years. Thank you for having me here. I'm looking forward to discussing with the panel.
Okay,
Tom.
and my name's Tom MaCoy. Thanks for the invite. Happy to be here and glad I'm able to offer a little bit of technical assistance. I am purely a freelancer. Got into streaming probably about 18 to 20 years ago when clients just started wanting to push their educational content out over the web. I was using Windows Media Encoder way back in the day when it was more difficult than it is now. I have some IT background, so networking and IT tech, that's been very helpful over the years. And I usually work with single camera, single laptop setups. I can scale up to 3 to 4 cameras pretty easily. I'm very used to being flexible. I kind of go into a lot of situations pretty blind and have just gotten a lot of experience with shooting on the fly, figuring out a backup need, how to secure yourself, how to make sure you can get that feed out when it counts. And yeah, it's kind of my experience has been so far.
Awesome, thank you guys. So we're going to first get into some hardware discussions. So obviously, there's different levels of streaming production, as we've heard from the panelists. Everything from the single camera and more more basic setup to the guy running the production van with 5 cameras, 4 cameras, and things like that. So I think we're going to start with some just kind of basic information for people that have not done streaming before, but are in this business of event coverage and have some gear, but have never done the live stream. So this question, I think initially we thought was going to kind of go to Eric and Brad, but again, feel free to chime in for others and Chad as well, probably. So hardware needs. So we're going to start with, obviously we need the cameras, we need computers, and we need a way to get the signal in there. So why don't we start with the computer side of it, of kind of minimal basics for what somebody would need for that, and then we can kind of move into the camera and the capture. Eric, you want to start?
I'll start. Basically, obviously, you need a camera, any sort of camera that has HDMI or preferably SDI out into, and then you're going to need something to transcode your video. A capture card or a device that's going to take that signal and bring it into your laptop. This is for the smaller scale operations. I know Chad, Jim, and Brad could probably talk a little bit more about having the multi-camera shoots where you're doing things a little bit more high end. But for basics, you have to get the signal from your camera into a laptop, and then you need either a streaming service like a Vimeo or YouTube, Facebook Live. There's different software packages. There's different price points. There's some free things like OBS software. think that really depends on your individual needs, and you have to look into those.
We'll bounce into that a little later. I think first is like, so what minimum, like for hardware, like how souped up of a computer do you typically need for streaming to be successful?
Well, that sort of depends. If you're going to do a laptop, one camera, basically any laptop with a decent graphic card will work. When you get into, but you can usually just do one camera, two cameras. Some really good laptops will handle. Any more than that, you start, even if it has 3 or 4 USB 3s, you start overloading it, and it's just going to drop out. You'll run out of bandwidth. Any more than that, you should use either desktop, or in our case, we specially build computers. We like the Aja cards, sometimes the Blackmagic, but the Aja SDI cards, which are really robust and made to handle 4, 6, 8 cameras. When we build our own systems, because we do as many as 10 cameras at a time, we actually build them with 2 2080 graphic cards, one that does the graphics and one that does the processing. By taking that and the encoding and moving on to 2 separate graphic cards, we can keep the CPU down to about 17, 18%. The biggest thing you have to watch is you get over 70, 80% on a laptop or anything like that on the graphics card, the computer is usually overheat and shut down. So it really depends. So you can basically, a good $500, $600 laptop, one camera, you're fine. We use the Aja cards, not so much the Blackmagic, because we find there's syncing problems with that with the audio. But any more than that, you need to kind of, you can even get a decent computer, but you can really build your own computer to spec and really get a nice job with it. So that's how we do it.
Awesome. So it gives us some good information for the computer part. So let's talk. So obviously you need a camera, you need an HDMI or SDI connection, as Eric said. For getting that content in, I know Chad, we talked about some options, and Brad actually mentioned another option, but let's talk about those the single capture cards or capture devices.
Well, like Brad said, there's a variety of different options, and I always look at the project that's at hand and the budget. But for people that are, budget conscious, getting into the business, want to start streaming, the majority of your stuff is single camera. Like Brad said, you'd go to a Best Buy or something like that and buy a pretty good, computer off the shelf. And then one of the things that I found that works really well is there's a company called Magwell, and they have some capture cards that do HDMI and SDI, and they're very cost effective and they work outstanding for the lower end stuff. If you're going to start getting into multi-camera, as Brad said, you're going to want to get into a full system to do that. But speaking of somebody just trying to get out there, start streaming, some of the event people that are here maybe just need to send out a single camera or something like that. That's a great solution. I would recommend also, if you're going to do that, just use Flash Media Encoder. To me, I've used it for years and years and years. It seems like a good, stable product for a lot of things. So, I would look at just not blowing the budget on a major computer or a capture card to do what you want to do. And I actually have, Magwell sells these products that are really super, and they're simple. I mean, plug them into any computer. It doesn't matter if it's Mac or whatever software it is, PC, whether you're using Linux, it doesn't matter. They will take it in. I have never had to install a piece of software for them. So great, easy product to get into. And then, you don't have to have a real expensive camera to do all of that type of stuff. Again, if you're just getting into this, you could probably go to Best Buy and grab a camera off the shelf as well. As you start to go up and get into more of the higher class stuff where you're doing 2, 3, 4, 5 cameras, you're going to be streaming to some pretty big CDNs and stuff. Then I would recommend much higher quality equipment. And that's something that if we want to get into it, it can get pretty technical, and there's a broad range of products out there. But I think we're talking more about kind of just getting into the game. That's a great way to get started.
Cool. So that's kind of the next question. So I guess once we get the content, in through that card. Now we're dealing with software, right? So we have to process that. So I guess are most of us that are switching multiple cameras, at least like 2 cameras, 3 cameras, you're using the software to do that. I assume most of you, right? So I guess talk about some of those software options between free options versus paid options and what some of those differences are. And I guess for that, we can kind of go around, and feel free to just chat amongst yourselves for that. I don't know who wants to start.
Well, I'm not a big lover of free. There's a reason why it's free. So I usually either recommend Wirecast or vMix. Each one kind of has its advantage. Like vMix, you can get an HD version of it with 4 inputs for as cheap as $60. I think Wirecast is around $750, but it's more robust. Or you can go all the way up to the full versions of vMix at like $1,200. But the paid versions give you much more stability. They give you recording, graphics. And if you're going to be professional, I think you really need to use a professional software. Some people like Wirecast a little bit better. Some people like vMix. It just depends on the type of production that you're going to do. Both of them allow you to bring in multiple call-ins like we're doing here and keep the quality up. So I'm not a big fan of the free. If you're going to just stream something for the fun of it, yes. But if you're being paid on a job, you need something that's really going to be robust and work.
Makes sense. So is Wirecast for most, like for Chad, for Jim? Is that what do you guys use that, or other options?
We use a full TriCaster, and then we go through. We personally prefer live stream on us, and if the client wants YouTube, although we don't recommend it, we'll multi-stream simultaneously to several different platforms at the same time, even their own private one. But we prefer live stream, and we like them.
Gotcha. How about Eric?
I'm the same as. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay. We use Vimeo, which purchased Livestream, so it's very similar. They have a studio software. It is paid software. You have to have the premium membership, and you can do a lot of different options. You can play video clips. You can bring up lower thirds and graphics. You can have a full studio suite there with multiple cameras, and you can push it out to multiple streams. You can push it out to Vimeo, but you can also send it to Facebook, YouTube. You can record it. There's a lot of possibilities. It's got some limitations as well, but for us, it has worked pretty well so far. I think there's a lot of different ways you can do this, and it's really knowing how to use the software is really a strong. To me, that's more important. So you can troubleshoot the problems, because I think all these applications have some issues in some form or another.
So the benefit to using Vimeo, password protection versus going out to like a YouTube or a Facebook Live, right?
Right. You can password protect it. You can send it to whoever you want. You can edit it. You can remove it. To me, there's a lot of benefits to Vimeo over YouTube, just in general, for hosting video. So we use Vimeo a lot for showing clients their videos and things like that. So if you're familiar with Vimeo, it works well. It's just taking it up another step to me.
One of the biggest problems with YouTube, and most people don't realize, should you be streaming and your stream gets interrupted, that's the end of the URL. So you have to create a new stream so you can be lost. Like if you have it embedded on a corporate page on a client and you lose that stream and restart, somebody's got to re-embed that code, which is a problem. Facebook is the same thing, but at least they can scroll up and find the new link, maybe. We like WOWs a lot because you can start and stop the stream. The link stays the same. And I think on the new versions of Vimeo, it does that also. But on YouTube, that is a major problem. If you're relying on that as your go-to, yes, it's a nice and easy system and it works great. But if that link goes bad, you are messed up.
I just want to bring something back to YouTube real quick. We ran into this in the early days. I don't know if they're still doing it, but copyrighted music in the background can shut you down. And also logos. It was funny because the regattas we had, one of them was Dadvale, and their logo was copyrighted. So basically, they were getting bumped on their own copyrighted logo. And the same thing that the other gentleman said about the link about shutting it down. What we did to get around that issue, we set up a pass-through website. It's called roaminglive.com. And then what we do is we do that day's activity in Philadelphia. So if we have to do it, we actually set up 4 YouTube accounts simultaneously. And what would happen was we would run one, and if one got buzzed or something happened to one just by accident, or if we got on the copyrights or something like that, we would take it and reload that splash page with the new URL so we could continue streaming live. So you would just have to go back through out of YouTube to the Growing Live, click on the link, and then it would update it to the next one. Those are some workarounds that we had to work with YouTube.
Wow. Yeah, I think that goes back to what Brad was saying. There is a reason stuff is free. And you have to be clear with your clients. Like if you're going to use YouTube or Facebook, if you're going to rely on that, there are a lot of caveats going into here. So you want to make sure you're absolutely clear on what the limitations of going with a free platform is. And as you get out of using a third-party browser or another CDN that you're actually paying some money into. Free is never really free.
Right. So why don't we talk about those two real quick? Brad, and maybe Brad can talk to Wowza, and Eric can talk to Vimeo just for pricing and how that structure works for somebody that's never done that. And Brad, if you want to start.
Sure. Just a quick note on YouTube. If you notify them that you're using music, even if you don't own the copyrights, but you've paid for the copyrights and you can show them the contract, and the same with the logo, they can whitelist it so you don't get interrupted, although that's not a foolproof. The advantage of Wowza is Wowza can stream to its own private server plus the Facebook and other places, but you can create an ideal player page that's got the client's logo on it, whatever information that they can embed on their page, or they can also send out a link to a player. That's a whole private service. You don't run into copyrights. You don't run into any issues with any of that. It's an actual private service. It's not that expensive. You can get plans as cheap as $50 a month, and then you just pay for your usage. It's very robust. So like if you have a client you're using every month, you can set up the whole player page in advance. That URL will stay the same for that client all the time, and you can have their logo up. So if you're not streaming it, there's just their logo up, like Anheuser-Busch or whoever it's going to be. And when you go live, it just replaces with the live video. When you're done, it just goes back to it. But the main advantage of that is it also sends out 5 different streams all the way from 4K down to 160. So if somebody's in a really bad reception area, the stream isn't lost. They can still keep working with it. You can control latency. It's just totally controllable, and you just don't run into issues with it.
Nice. Let's see, Eric, did you talk Vimeo pricing?
Pricing for the premium, I think, is around $800 a year. They have promo codes out there that sometimes you can get, but that's also with the premium membership. So if you're using it for other things, to me, it's just, it's worth it. It's because you do have that control. You don't have the copyright issues. Anytime we've done on Facebook Live or YouTube, we've had issues off and on, and you can't get the support. That's the other thing with these paid services. There's somebody you can call, there's somebody you can email, and they'll get back to you and answer you and work through your issues. I've not had that with Facebook or YouTube or the free services. Back to you get what you pay for.
Right. So one more question on my end. I'm gonna pass it to John after this to start going into some of the other stuff. So getting this content online. So obviously we're relying on the World Wide Web of internets to get our content up there, and oftentimes we're relying on a client connection, right? So I'll have Eric start, because he only really does connections through client internet, and then I'll have our more advanced folks that utilize this bonded cellular technology talk about that as another option, and what that, obviously it's a pretty costly perspective, but talk about what that's like. So Eric, you want to start?
Sure. So what we do is I'll only hardwire, meaning that I'm bringing an Ethernet cable and I'm connecting it to a laptop or to another box, and making sure that we have a strong internet signal. Because if you don't, your stream's not going to work. And there's nothing worse than having a stream drop out in the middle of a job, and a client comes up to you in the middle of a shoot. Because typically what we do is live events, so it's not like you can stop the live event, whether it's a seminar or a performance, and tell them that hold on a sec, we got to wait for the stream. You got to try to troubleshoot it on the fly. But with doing that, we'll always go do a site visit. We'll always test the internet connection out with the speed and make sure that it's strong enough. Because if it's not, then we won't take on the job, because it's not worth it. Because if it fails, it fails. But one we always do is everything's recorded. The cameras are recording. The laptop's recording. So part of it, and I know we're going to get into this later about the contracts and how to word it, but we're going to we make sure we know that we'll post the video later if there is an issue, which you hope there's not, but you need to prepare just in case. But was there anything else, Justin, you want me to say about that?
So Wi-Fi, no, right?
I don't personally do Wi-Fi. I know Jim and Chad and Brad have done that. for what we do. If I need to be in that situation, I'll bring in somebody like Jim, Brad, or Chad to do it. Part of what we do is knowing what I can do and what I cannot do.
So
Airspace, I've dealt with Wi-Fi occasionally when there are absolutely no other choices. It can be done, but it is pretty much the worst possible option to go with outside of maybe hotspotting through your phone. So yeah, you always push for a hardwire connection, and ideally, if you can, you get an in-site survey a week beforehand, try and get the same time of day, try and get a sense of how fast their connection is, how connection is, what kind of traffic they anticipate, because this is less of a problem than it used to be. But if you're in a hotel and you're supposed to start streaming at 8, at 9 p.m., suddenly everyone jumps up, at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., suddenly everyone jumps up and starts checking their email, and the available bandwidth you have just plummets. So you have to be aware of, like, when you're relying on a venue's connection, you have to be aware of all the different factors that can go into what can possibly wreck that and how you can possibly improve that for yourself. One thing you can look at is something you can isolate bandwidth for you that should be what's called QoS quality. You now reserve for your connection, and that can coordinate that with the local IT that you're working with.
One thing else, we always work, when we go out to that site visit, we ask that there's one of their IT people on hand, just to make sure that some schools or organizations will close IP ports. So you have to make sure certain ones are open for live stream and for Vimeo. Certain ones, if they're blocked, your video is not going up. And they can just, it takes them 5 minutes to open it up if you have that person there. So that's one thing.
Yeah, getting hold of that person challenge.
That's why we always schedule that before we go out, is we don't want to waste our time.
No, it's the worst thing to be doing at 30 minutes before you're supposed to go live.
We run into this situation a little different. Probably, myself, Jim, and Brad doing some of the bigger productions. We utilize a technology called bonded cellular for a lot of our stuff. So even if I go in to do some corporate jobs, even though they may have some good bandwidth there, I'll bring in my bonded cellular encoder. I'll take their hard line, and I'll also attach their Wi-Fi to it. And I typically will just have a cell card in there as well, just as a backup. So we're kind of a little bit more resilient that way. So if we do get a spike on the wireless in-house at the facility or whatnot, we don't have to worry about it. But the majority of what we do is kind of outside or off-site and not always internet available. So we use the bonded cellular a lot. And then, so you can have, some of them have 2 or 3 cellular cards in them. Some of them have up to 12, depending on how you do that. And it shares that bandwidth so that when you get a spike on one, you're not taking such a big hit. We also have gone a step further in that on my truck, I've installed a KU IP satellite system. So I have a direct internet connection via satellite. So even if I'm in a really bad area, and I'll give you an example. If you go to a football stadium, let's say, Penn State, there's so many people there using the cellular and all that type of stuff. We just deploy our satellite dish, and that's how we get our bandwidth to whether we're streaming or whether we're sending a feedback to a network station or whatnot. But that's a great way on the higher end to give yourself a little bit more peace of mind when you're going into facilities that might be overtaxed.
Of course, with bonded cellular, you're dealing with the hardware, plus you're paying for 6 to 12 cellular.
I wanted to ask about that a little bit. For those who don't know, I'm going to toss this to Chad and Jim here a little bit. Why don't you guys explain a little what bonded cellular is? Obviously, that's an option that's not going to be feasible for everybody, but I would like to, if you guys could explain that to our audience a little bit, what that is. Fill in the blanks there for us a little bit.
Bonded cellular. I'm sorry. Do you want to take it, Chad?
No, you can take it.
Okay. Bonded cellular is just a fancy name for if you're taking your signal, you're sending it up. Before it goes up, it gets to a little black box. When it goes to the black box, it divides it between 1, 2, 3, or maybe 4 different cellular systems, like, for instance, AT&T, Verizon, Sprint. And then what it does, it reassembles in the cloud and then comes back down again. And it takes about 20 seconds, 20 to 30, depending on latency and some stuff like that. But then it reassembles in the cloud. So bonded cellular, you're going across several different networks, reassembling in the cloud, and then coming back down again. And that allows you, as long as there's cellular service anywhere, for you to be able to do it. The nice thing about that is the equipment that does it, we use a Bond 2. And in doing that, it straddles the different networks. For instance, if you're only able to get like a 1 meg up on one service and maybe 3 megs up on another and 4 megs up on another, it'll take all those and then load bear it between the different services, reassemble in the cloud, then send it back.
And someone had talked about pricing, and that it could be, it's a monthly plan. So basically what we do is we have a plan. We have 8 cellular plans that are strictly just for the bonded cellular. And, we use that for a lot of projects, especially like Jim had mentioned, the product that we use for streaming. We upgraded last summer to the new technology, the HVEC or the H.265 technology, which where you used to need to do something at say 6 meg before, you could do it at 3 meg. And so we do a lot of high school and college events literally through our streaming, or through our bonded cellular, I should say. And we're doing anywhere between 10, 15, 20 games a month that we're able to get through that. So it's a great product. And, I'll be honest, I mean, my bill a month for all of that and all of that use is about $1,200. But when you consider the fact that you're doing, 15, 20 events that are 2 hours or more, a lot of them 3 hours long, it's pretty damn good compared to having to go out and get a satellite truck, or to even have to pull in and pay a cable company or some type of internet provider to pull you in a dedicated line or anything like that. And you really don't have to worry about all that stuff. It's all controlled from your own truck or your own your own fly pack or whatever you're putting it in. I absolutely love it. We send feeds from everywhere to streaming online to sending games for ESPN using bonded cellular. So it's something that's used every day now in the broadcast market. So, and you can get the delay down to as low as 2 seconds on some of the products as well.
Cool. John, did you want to go to the next area?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, guys, but I wanted to kind of circle back around a little bit and talk about our software options a little bit more. I think we mentioned a couple of things, but I wanted to kick this question to Eric and to Tom. Let's talk a little bit about our software options, the pros and cons of what we got going on. Obviously, we talked about some cheaper and some more expensive options. So I just kind of want to flush that conversation out a little bit more.
You want to start, Tom, or do you like that?
Sure. I mean, I think we've the big four have basically been mentioned. You have the 2 free options, which are OBS and Flash Media Encoder, and the 2 big paid options are Wirecast and vMix. Of the paid options, like, everyone has their preference. They're both pretty stable programs at this point. Wirecast to run this program right now. I think Wirecast is a little more intuitive and user-friendly. And there's my child. More intuitive and user-friendly to work with, but I think vMix has a deeper level of configuration you can get into. At price points, Wirecast is basically, there is a pro version and a studio version, and they're about $500 to $800. vMix has a pretty long list of tiers you can buy at, where you can get a very low cost, like $60 per at 4 sources, all the way up to a $700 or $1,200 program that can do 1,000 sources, I think. Someone else can correct me on that, as well as all kinds of remote call-ins and deeper complicated effects. Eric, you want to touch on like the free stuff and also maybe mention live stream a little bit, because that's also a different aspect of the software options.
In terms of the free stuff, I'm not really sure, because we use the Vimeo, which is paid. It comes with software called Live Stream Producer, which is that live stream used. So I think it's the limitations I'll say is I think you're limited to a couple sources. If I need more than that, I'm going to hire somebody with a TriCaster. If you're looking to do 4, 5, 6 cameras, I think it needs to be more hardware based. I think for a single camera, maybe a second camera, something simple with graphics or like a seminar that you can control the elements a little bit better. I think it's Vimeo or live stream works well with that. And and when I say that, it also can go to YouTube and Facebook. That's part of one of the output options, that you can easily go to those services if you don't want to pay for, one of the other services. But there is limitations. If the stream fails or things like that, you might have to be starting over, and people cannot find your video as easily.
Yeah,
So
and I can fill
can
in.
you guys-
Sorry, I'll just touch on the free stuff a little bit real quick. It's an open software option, so it is free to download. It's fairly powerful and fairly stable and reasonably supported, but it is free, so there are some limitations. Also, there is one brief aspect we haven't touched on the capture side, which is that we've all been talking USB 3. If you happen to have a Mac computer already and you can use Thunderbolt, I find that to be a more stable capture option. And there's a device that plays very nice with Wirecast that lets you bring in 3 to 4 cameras over a single Thunderbolt cable made by Aja, which is kind of a unique aspect. And I believe it will talk to vMix too. And then Flash Media Encoder, the last one, has been around for years and updated. Still, it's pretty limited. One source in, you basically set your parameters and point it at the server you want to hit, usually by RTMP, and hit go. And that all can multiple sources or anything complicated like that.
Is that OBS you're talking about?
That was Flash Media. OBS, I believe, can support multiple sources in.
Okay.
Can I get one question off of the feed real quick? Looks like Mark was asking, I have 2 or 3 events at the same time. Do I need more than one account to stream all 3? So I guess that's referring to like Vimeo as a service or Wowza as a service. Like, how does that work if you're doing multiple events at the same time?
Well, if it's Wowza, you can do as many as you want. You just create the stream. So there's days where we've got as many as 20 different Wowzas going to 20 different pages. You're paying for the use of your bandwidth. That's about it. But like I said, we've had as many as 20 individual pages, 20 individual streams running. I don't know if Vimeo can do that or not, but Wowza, you definitely can. That's what it's built for.
Vimeo, I believe you can have multiple streams. I don't think you can have 20, but each one has its own personal link. Or basically you create an event, which is like creating a job, and then you can send that link to whoever. And you just need to when you log into your software, it gives you a choice of what event you want to broadcast to. But that's within the producer software.
Live stream, you can do as many as you want. We've done 18 is the most that we've done.
I believe on the free versions for Facebook and YouTube, you're going to be limited to live account count at a time. So you could create multiple accounts to get around that, but then you also need multiple encoders, obviously, to deal with that.
John, next question.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry. So I'm going to toss this one to Chad and to Eric. So, we were talking about hosting options, our free and paid, password protected streams, how we're going to sell seats for that, workarounds with that, and then monetization with regards to how we handle our hosting options. So I was curious if you guys could talk a little bit about that.
Go ahead, Eric. You can start.
Okay. Well, for hosting, Vimeo will host your videos. It'll hold them on there after the event. And then you can even go in and edit it down, because sometimes we'll start the stream early, but then I want to actually download the video and cut out dead spots, or sometimes there's a lag at the beginning of 15 minutes or something like that. Or if there's any technical issues that happen, we can remove. What was the rest of your question? I'm sorry.
With regards to hosting options, what are our free options? What are our paid options? How do you handle the password protection? And then monetization is really what I'm driving at. Like, how do you sell seats to that? Is basically like, how do you handle that?
So I know there's some pay-per-view options that somebody else could probably talk about better than I can, but we don't do that. Typically, I bill my client. I say, here's the fee for what we're doing. It can be password protected video, so they can sell that and email it, blast it out to their clients or their customers, whoever purchased it. That's one way to have it control it. And you can always change the password after So sometimes we'll do an event, like a seminar that they sell and they continue to sell for the rest of the year. It's going to depend on your client. If it's something in academia where they're, you don't think people are going to steal it and sell it and or give it away for free, then you don't have to worry about it. Typically, my clients haven't been worried about that.
Okay. Did anyone else want to speak a little bit more to some of those monetization options? I think some of the pay-per-view options.
We don't do a lot of pay-per-view productions. A lot of ours are live sports, and some of the things that we do if it's we do some UFC Fight Pass stuff, and obviously all of the memberships and all of that is handled from them. But in the past, I've used a company called livestreamingprovider.com. They do a nice job of being able to provide you with things. Jim, I know you had mentioned the regatta, and let's say the regatta is over 3 days and you want to sell a pay-per-view package. The nice part about them is they can offer you tickets. So you can get a 1-day ticket or seat, or 2-day, 3-day, different prices and stuff like that. So that's one way to be able to do pay-per-view events and stuff like that. And if I'm correct too, Waza does that as well, doesn't it, Brad?
I believe it does. I don't really have to get too much involved with that because we're sending the stream from Wowza, and then they're posting it on websites, and they charge commission into the websites. Is the way our clients do it.
Yeah, that's kind of the way we are too. So it's we're more of the production side and not necessarily to the direct customer side when it comes to that type of stuff.
Cool. Yeah, I was curious about that workaround kind of, so I find that interesting. So you would basically password protect the site and then put the stream on the site, essentially.
Either that, or what they can do is that there's a link and you pay to get access to the link. And yeah, you can cheat a little bit. Somebody could share it, but it doesn't usually happen. So it's usually either pay and you get a link, or pay and you get connection into a private web page that's got the stream running on it.
That's interesting. Cool.
And I wanted to talk in regards to pay versus free, and it's always a sticky issue with me, and I'm sure Jim and Brad, you guys have run into this, is when you start getting into trying to monetize streaming, even still today, it really tends to cut your audience by a ton. I mean, sometimes 80-90%, because people just don't want to pay to see a stream on there. So sometimes if it's something that you really want to get out there, it's better to probably pass on trying to make, $600 and get the product out to, 1,000 people or 10,000 people or whatever it is, as opposed to making $600 and it gets out to, 20 people, or, it's still, even today, I mean, you've got things like ESPN Plus and stuff, which is all streaming services, but they've got this huge marketing machine to drive you to those types of things. But it's really hard. The corporate world, it's great because, I do a lot of training for some podiatrists and stuff like that. So being able to sell the training to people, you may want to go to pay-per-view sites and you really don't care about how many people are watching because it's such a specific market and targeted market. But if you're talking about something sort of general, my experience has been, it's been really, really tough for those customers that come to me and want to do that, to kind of offset or recoup the cost of doing the production in the first place. So that's just my experience.
It's funny you mention it, because one of the tricks we found is, like, if we're streaming for a doctor's conference and maybe 100 people, we're streaming to that private website and they're paying for it. One of the things that we did, which might be interesting to members, is, and we do it you could do it with one camera. We tend to do it on a large scale. We stream a lot of local parades, and we don't charge for it. We eat the cost. We do it through cellular, satellite. We eat the cost of it. But what happens is, we may have sometimes, we have one parade we do each year that we'll feed it to our Facebook page, and we're members of like maybe 20 other Facebook page, and we'll share it across from ours to all theirs, and people will keep sharing it. So we've had some parades with as many as 30 to 40,000 viewers. But what happens is, we get calls then, hey, we really appreciate the fact that you did this for free to the community, and we couldn't believe the quality. Can you come in and talk to us about doing our live streams for pay? So even though we're losing the cost on doing it, you're hitting 30, 40, 50,000 people, and we end up generating a tremendous amount of business out of that.
something that to even spin off of what Brad just said is that when I mentioned that we do the medical conference and we're talking about pay-per-view, and one of the things you got to talk about when you talk about pay-per-view as well is that it's not as simple as pay-per-view. So you're paying the service provider for just the opportunity to use the service. Then you're paying a per stream fee. Then you're paying PayPal a percentage of the money that they're collecting for you, and it just keeps snowballing. One of the things that I've done is with the medical conferences is we actually will utilize a video conferencing software where you can buy a license and you got it for $15, $20 a month, and you can use up to 100 or 1,000 or whatever users. And what we'll do is we'll produce the whole medical conference with multiple cameras and the PowerPoint slides and all the extra stuff, and then we'll shoot that to a video conferencing software, and then we stream it out from there to customers. And I'll give you an example. So we do podiatry in Philadelphia, and we may have 200-300 people on site taking this continuing education or getting ready for taking their board certifications, and then we have 200 or 300 or 400 people online around the country that are taking those classes online. With the video conferencing software, we bring them in, we control the password because, we can do all the password protection through that. We can poll them to make sure they're there in terms of, checking to make sure that they're there for the credits and everything. And instead of paying hundreds or thousands of dollars on the pay-per-view side, we're only paying that $10 or $12 a month for that subscription. And it's a great way to get around that for those types of things. I'm talking things like conferences or training, stuff like that. If you're getting into sports and parades, like Brad said, and stuff like that, it's got to be much higher quality. But that's a solution maybe for someone looking to save some money to do some pay-per-view or something like that, or how to monetize the stream even for some small events and stuff like that. And as Brad said, we do a lot of lacrosse in Baltimore, and we had that same type of feedback. We started doing lacrosse on just Facebook, and we were getting 600, 700, 800 people, and then 1,000 people the second year watching online. Then all of a sudden we started streaming to Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and bang, overnight it was 30, 40, 50,000 people watching around the country. And that generated business for us as well, Brad. So sometimes you got to do it for free or throw it out there to get more money. And what we're trying to do, we're trying to make more money here ourselves, but for the client as well. Now their return on investment is huge because 30,000 people watching a high school lacrosse game, that's a pretty damn good audience. And the same with the parade. Most of the time people are going to attend the parade or whatever. So, that's a great way to give your customer a hell of a lot bigger bang for their buck.
Well, that's how we ended up building up. We did a parade, let's say in Doylestown, and people that had moved away would watch it. And we actually got one of our biggest contracts in Los Angeles. It was somebody who used to live there, watched it, appreciated it, and contacted us. So yeah, we do a lot of free public service stuff, and we find it really brings us a lot of bang for the buck back, either which way.
Cool. Let's see. So getting a couple questions. I'm just kind of looking to try to feel free. We are watching the feed. If you have questions, to feed those in there.
Questions, please feel free to leave them all in the comments. We're copying and pasting them down. We'll definitely take care of them at the end.
We're kind of working through them at the end, and sometimes if they're relevant to exactly what we're talking about. So somebody had asked about costs, like how much. Let's see here. I think Robert looks like asked about how much people charge, and our next topic was kind of contracts. So I think that kind of falls into that. So we'll start with the idea of obviously the live stream, there's risk, right? The stream doesn't go through and things like that. So how do you guys work your contracts for, protection against that kind of failure? Are you still collecting in full on location, even if the stream doesn't work out for either reasons from your end or reasons from the internet or all these different things that can go wrong?
Well, we always, in our contracts that we do, I have a clause no matter what. If the contract in any way says streaming, maybe we're broadcasting live to television and we're streaming secondarily to YouTube and Facebook and all those types of things. I have a clause in every single contract that states streaming, and it says we do not own the internet. We have no control over it. We don't own the servers. We can't reboot them. So when we stream, what we're guaranteeing you is that from the camera, through whatever switcher, whatever we're using, and out to our encoder, and that encoder send it out to the internet. Once it's passed and into the internet, we can't guarantee you quality of service because we don't own it. We can only guarantee you that we're going to deliver to there at the best quality and what we say we're going to do. So I have that clause in everything that says we don't own the internet, so we don't guarantee any specific quality of service. And if you do that, you're absolutely crazy if you say, because there's so many unknowns. And I'll give you a perfect example is every single production that I do that's streaming, I have a laptop that is pulling in every single one of those streams. If it's YouTube, it's there. If we have YouTube and Facebook, it's on that laptop. If it's YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, it's on that laptop. Because I'll have a customer that'll come up and say, this lady in Du Bois, Iowa is on her cell phone and she says the stream's not working. And I literally just point to my laptop and I say, you see it on Facebook there? You see it on YouTube there? Do you see it on Twitter? I have no control over the internet and I have no control over those people's cell phones. I'll even have a client that's running around inside the facility trying to get it on their phone and they've got no reception in the facility and they come up and go, why isn't the stream working? So that's why I always have a clause in there specifically addressing streaming as it hits the internet. And I even do that with bonded cellular because once it hits my server on the receive side and is sent out into the internet to hit those platforms, I have no control over it. So I personally would recommend that everybody have some type of streaming clause in there that protects you. And I think Eric, you had mentioned earlier, always have backup recordings, always, so that if something happens, you can provide them with them. And you can also provide quality of service. And actually what I do is on my server sides, I actually record not only in my truck and stuff like that, but I record on my server sides to show that it went through my entire process and my entire network before it hit the internet. And that's another way to kind of cover your butt and also, save yourself if anything happens.
We do the same thing, and then what we recommend is we record also. We say we're going to rebroadcast in 12 hours, and we also put that caveat on whatever we're recording also, because we've run into all kinds of issues with that, where we've had to drop it down to 480 and things like that, just because when we're dealing with the cellular side of it, cellular doesn't work the same way your house works. And for instance, if you're getting 100 up and 100 down at your house, let's move that over to cellular. If they have 100 megs up and 100 megs down dedicated for cellular, if all of a sudden the demand rises to where they need to pull 170 down instead of up, it takes it from the upload. So you can actually choke yourself on site. So I would recommend when you're putting that in your contract, just like Chad said, add on there that you don't mind rebroadcasting it in 12 hours, the entire event, because that usually puts our clients at ease. And that's in every one of our contracts with the sporting events that we do.
One of the things we do also is we have two different type of LiveView boxes. We have the LiveView 600, which is very expensive. That's got 12 encoding cards in it. We also use LiveView Solo. Solo, you can buy an HDMI for like $1,000. You can buy an SDI for about $1,800. And they've got a special where you can get an AT&T and a T-Mobile card with unlimited data for about $300 a month. Depending on what we're broadcasting, whether it's a 600 or it's a low end one, we'll take the Solo. But what we do in our contract is we'll say if you want one of those boxes on site, depending which one, it's X about more money. We have a client that turns around and says to us, we will pay you to have that 600 live streaming. So instead of just taking the internet from our computers right into their internet, we take it from our broadcast computers into the 600. The 600's got the internet, it's got the Wi-Fi, and we use six cards, and we charge them for that. And again, it still has a contract. It could fail. The other thing I really love about LiveView versus regular cellular bonding is you can control it to a little bit more delay, but what that does, it's got adaptive bit rate. So should the stream drop, instead of seeing pixelation and quality, it can control that and give you a much more stable stream. Again, you are seriously paying serious money for that. I don't know if any of you guys have worked with the LiveView 600s at all yet, but it is so robust. All that stuff you're seeing now from a lot of home video coming in now, like CNN and all that, Dr. Oz show, that's not going over the internet. Dr. Oz is using the LU 600s because they're actually the most stable platforms you can get, but you are paying some serious money for it. Yeah,
we have on our truck, we have a LiveView encoder, we have a Teradek encoder, and we're going to be putting in a TVU encoder so that we can manage to hit any of the TV networks, because that's what they're using now. But yeah, they're a fantastic product. I like the LiveView. I think LiveView is very simple, kind of like TVU. Just set up, hit go, and you're done. No configuration, no nothing. It can be controlled remotely, and all those types of things. Most of them can, but yeah, great product.
LiveView also has the advantage when you get into the scale like we are, you can stream right up from the LiveView box to a small 18 or 20 foot inch dish right up to their satellite directly now.
Yep, exactly.
So just curious, let me throw a curveball out there. Has anybody used the Teradek Go yet?
I have not. I use a lot of Teradek products, and I have not used the Go yet. No.
Okay, just curious.
So it's kind of coming back to pricing, I guess, which again, I don't expect you to kind of to throw out your rate sheets here, but I guess depending on the level from, how do you guys figure that? How do you guys base your pricing? So, and again, I don't know who would want to start this, but so obviously from that lower level of not as much guarantee for service to multiple camera, like is it what are the different components that you factor for when you build a cost?
For us, it depends. If it's just a laptop and a camera and it's like a 2-hour stream, that might be one cost. If it's a full day with one camera, one laptop, might be $1,000. If we're getting into where we need a truck and we need 6 cameras and a whole crew and everything, like we do with the New Jersey concerts and stuff like that, you can be anywhere to $20,000. It just depends on what you want. What do you want? Something that's just a basic educational and you're using in-house audio, to where you're doing full broadcast. So it just varies.
I just charge $1 million for everything. No, I'm kidding.
I would definitely say the guy who comes in and says, listen, I can give you a 5-hour broadcast with my camera and a laptop for $300. You want to run from?
Exactly.
You're getting what you're paying for.
And of course, all of our experts up top, you in addition to working for yourselves, do you subcontract for others as well? If one of our member companies needed needed a more complex stream. Right. Okay. What else? What are we moving now?
We're willing to come out with one person or a full truck, whatever you need, and also do the site survey. And I'm sure that the gentleman on either side of me will do the same. So don't hesitate to call. And I'm also, if you want to just ask a question, we're free with the knowledge. I'm not a knowledge hoarder or anything else like that. I just want to make sure that the clients are taken care of and that we keep great relationships with the people here at the GPVA.
And I love this environment personally because I'm a small business guy. I have my own truck, and yes, maybe we're a little bigger than you guys, but we're really not, because we all rely on each other. I mean, my freelancers are, I work with John on a particular project for that airs on TV Asian stuff. It's the South Asian Spelling Bee. We've worked on other types of stuff, and so being able to work together on some of this stuff helps, because Jim and Brad, I don't know about you guys, but when I have a camera operator that you call for some of these events, and we're kind of in a different world than these 24 and 50-foot trucks, 48-foot tractor trailers and everything. When I call up somebody to be a camera operator and they say, yeah, my rate for the day is $700, I hang up the phone basically immediately, because we're in a different ballgame. And I love the fact that there's all of these types of people out there like myself and you guys that, if we don't work together and we don't kind of help each other out along the way, we kind of get swallowed up. Although I think the industry has changed a lot, where, those big trucks and everything, everybody said, well, you guys are too small. The world has changed. Some of the projects that even 2 years ago that people just overlooked my truck for, I'm, getting up until this, coronavirus thing, I was getting calls like crazy for stuff that I never got called for before, because people are starting to see the value of the smaller trucks and some of the more not scaled down crews, but I call it more efficient, the way we're doing some of this stuff. So I love this. I love the idea of, things like this and people getting together and learning about each other, because we need all of each other to do these projects. I mean, we use freelancers all over the East Coast. We can't afford to truck people up and down the coast and go all over the place to do projects. So this is great.
Cool. And we have, looks like almost a little over 50 people watching right now. So hopefully we're definitely getting the word out about what we're doing here. And feel free to continue to put your questions in the feed. We're going to hit those in a little bit for those that we didn't get to already. John, did you want to get into the kind of not competing with some of these online?
No, I'm glad we were talking about the trucks, because that kind of moves into this. I remember when I was in high school, we used to go to NAB, and like the coolest thing in the universe was going into those broadcast trucks. I'll never forget it. But now, yeah, it's obviously changed. Everything's gotten a lot more smaller, and now we're competing with things like Zoom and GoToMeeting. So, and iPads. So what I wanted to ask you guys is how do we do that? And I'm going to ask this it's kind of a group thing, but I do want to start off with Jim and with Eric. How do we not compete with Zoom and GoToMeeting and iPads? In the age of cell phones and all this available technology, obviously we're all at different levels and stuff here, but how do we not compete with those types of really inexpensive platforms and softwares?
Some of them you can't compete with. You can't compete with $9.99 a month for unlimited meetings or small meetings or one-to-one things. That you can't. So don't try. I mean, everything's changed in the world right now. We're all scrambling to try to find stuff we can live stream. There's other things you can do. Is you can bring in your professional cameras, your professional audio to some of those things, if the client's willing to pay for them. My advice in all this is kind of go to your existing clients and see if they want to do things like that are along the lines of things that you're already doing. Just the audience is a little different because they're not in house and they're not there. It's tough because I'm searching for the answers. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in, but I don't think you can compete with those. You can't compete with FaceTime. It's free, or Skype. That's all those services are really inexpensive. But there's other things you can do. You can incorporate them into live stream or to Vimeo. You can take a Zoom feed and bump it out to a larger audience and maybe password protect it a little bit different. I think you got to find creative solutions to where we're at right now.
Yeah, I don't think we're competing with Zoom or WebEx. Or Facebook Live. We actually are there to enhance it. My wheelhouse is a little bit different. Not only do we do the streaming and the video side of it, we also provide plasmas. We go up to 90-inch plasmas where we can do, string them along with 30 of them in a row if we want to, full HD, because we deal with all that kind of stuff on top of it. So what we'll do with a WebEx or a Zoom meeting, we'll take and actually give a separate camera on the side for the person who's doing the actual presentation. And we may do a second camera and then switch it through. So you can have a 2-camera of the audience and also of the person who's actually giving the meeting, and then send that out, and also run the audio through a mixer and microphone system so everything is crystal clear going through to their people. With that, also with the when you're dealing with around the world stuff, we've done some stuff with Bangladesh and Australia where they're doing meetings. We'll take over a Holiday Inn and have different collaborations going on. We'll set up a 90-inch plasma next to, I say plasma, I'm old school, a 90-inch monitor off to the side where you can see 5 or 6 different countries live and see them just like you're looking at us as you were looking at us, instead of having it all on a small computer screen. That's one thing that we found to enhance it. So that's just an idea.
And somebody had asked just about streaming to Zoom or streaming with Zoom. I mean, I get they do have that capability, right? But I mean, obviously that it's not as pretty as what we're looking at with the Wirecast system here.
Actually, what's really good about that is I remember the first time I did it, I was nervous as heck dealing with Zoom. Believe it or not, call their customer service when you do the test and get there a couple hours before. Just put the time in for you. They'll actually talk you through all the settings, because at the first time I did it, I wasn't familiar with all the settings. Now we can buzz through that stuff like nobody's business. But their tech people walked us right through. And then when I did my first Zoom meeting, when they first came up about it, I did the same thing. I called their tech support, and believe it or not, the Zoom tech support was even better than the WebEx. Also, if you're dealing with security, I had this issue where I had a company, I can't say who it was for, but it was a major internet provider. We were actually dealing with the coders that were working for that internet provider, that we were actually sending their meeting through their internet lines. And we were talking to Bangladesh and some other places around the world. So we had to make sure that the certificates were proper. WebEx has the best certificate and the best security. If you need security, don't go with Zoom.
In the news for that lately.
The amazing thing is they say it'll take months and months and months to fix that issue. Whereas here, when you're doing Wirecast or vMix, you're creating your own private internal system. It's a much more secure system than the Zoom or things like that.
John, where are we at?
And have anyone jump in and bomb this conversation because you only permit the audience members that you actually want in. I have to approve anyone before they join, so we're not going to have any random passersby coming in screaming horrible things at us because they think it's funny for some reason.
That happened. So I guess the consensus seems obviously is that it seems that it's about adding service and about adding the functionality beyond obviously just a conference call. Seems to be the theme of that with regards to not being in competition with the free services like that.
Well, I think they're a totally different business. GoToMeeting or having a bunch of people to get together like a Zoom for a conversation is very, very different than doing a sporting event or doing a parade or doing a concert. So they're really two different businesses. If you're trying to compete against Zoom or Blue Jeans, it's not going to happen. But if you're trying to do a really good quality piece of work, there's going to be a difference.
Makes sense. Well, I believe we've worked our way through a lot of our already pre-existing questions and content. Justin, I think we can go ahead and open up to some questions if anyone else, if we had anyone.
Yeah, I looked at one that just popped. Mr. Nick Lang. Hello, Mr. Nick Lang. I think he's driving somewhere at the moment, from what he told me yesterday. Any special requirements for streaming 360 video? Is that a thing? Is that doable?
I don't stream 360 anything, so that's out of my wheelhouse.
We're experimenting with it. It's extremely expensive and difficult. Ask me that in 2 years, but right now it's in the infancy stages, and there's a lot of expense to it.
Got it. And I think there was a question about audio way back in the feed. I think Mr. Mike Brand, hey Mike, how are you doing? Had asked about audio and I guess wireless microphones, hardwired microphones, just different recommendations for how you're capturing sound.
I recommend hardwired as much as possible. I recommend hardwire as much as possible, even on small stuff, because once they took away the 600 band and everybody got pushed into the 4 and 5s, you can run into problems. If you have something good like electrosonic, you've got much less of a chance of a problem. But if you're using a basic Sennheiser or something like that, especially in a city like Philadelphia, New York, you can be screwed so fast. So as much as possible, hardwire.
In terms of more general approach, you're still following the same rules for audio that you would for a regular camera shoot. One thing I do on smaller shoots, though, is typically you'll be feeding the audio just directly into the camera, and the camera will mux that signal into your HDMI or HDSDI, which will greatly reduce the chance that you're going to get AV issues, which can more train them separately. Trying per unit. Or issues like I'm having where I'm cutting out here.
That's one of the things we do when we're streaming. Originally, we would take the SDI from the camera in, and we would bring the audio mixer in separately. We don't do that anymore. We take 2 feeds, a regular and a duplicate, but on a different channel as a security. We feed both of them into the cameras. So the audio is coming into the camera once, so the recording has the true audio synced right in it, and it's coming down the SDI so it stays synced. Because we have seen issues where if the video is brought in through the SDI from the camera and the audio is brought in through the mixer in through a different type of capture device, you can run into a sync issue. If it's brought from the mixer or whatever right into the camera and right down the SDI, I've never had a sync issue that way.
That makes a lot of sense.
But it's just easier to feed it into the camera. It saves you a lot of trouble.
Right, it saves you all the work of having to worry about it.
Exactly.
And plus, if you have to do it in post-production or recreate something, it's all you have a backup on everything.
Right.
How about talking about wireless video? We touched on this a little yesterday. Is that obviously hardwire when possible? But if you're in a situation where let's say you're doing a church service or something, you can't get the wires to run where you need to. Is that an option? Is it how? What are some of the choices out there? And I guess maybe one of our other Chad, Jim, or Brad on that one maybe.
One of my recommendations is if you're using one camera, find a way to hardwire that camera. You don't want it on wireless. If it's a secondary, we use a lot of wireless gear. We have, I think I have 5 wireless camera systems. We have the Teradek bolts and stuff, and we use those for things like, I'll give you an example. So for basketball, our main 2 cameras, our main game camera and cutaway is always wired, and then we'll use our basket cameras a lot of times to be wireless cameras. Sideline cameras for football, wireless. But we never ever, I will never ever have my main camera be on a wireless feed. If you can't reach it with SDI, then you need to make sure you have fiber to make that run. So my recommendation is take a look at your production. Wireless gear is great if you understand it, and this is the thing I think that a lot of people don't, and you learn it from experience. And I think Jim and Brad will agree with me. I've been doing this 33 years. If somebody tells you your wireless camera kit's going to go 1,000 feet, you're not going to get more than 500. With the Teradek bolts, we have 90-95% of the time we have great reception with them. They work good. They're the ones I have are 2,000 feet. I never have them any more than 1,000 feet, really closer to 600 feet from the receiver when I use those. I wouldn't recommend using them to shoot a camera across the river or something like that, because all different types of things could interfere even though your range is there. So my recommendation is main cameras always hardwire. Wireless is fantastic, but don't use it as primaries.
I totally agree. We tend to use a lot of Teradek beams. I find them to be extremely stable. They say they'll go up to about 2,500 feet. The most we'll stretch them is 1,500, and that's if we're using an array. And our array is usually on a 50-foot mask above the truck. But yeah, that's direct line of sight. We've used them in Madison Square Garden and gone a couple floors down, a couple floors over. But that's been risky, and we were surprised it's worked. But you just don't know what's going to happen with wireless. It's a crapshoot. It's not.
Right.
Yeah, we do the Teradek bolt also. That's the only thing that we ever trust. They're the only 2 cameras that we ever use is a Teradek bolt with the, we use a Z5 or something else on that too, just to make sure it gets through. The only other wireless that we use is for our drone also. Be careful. The thing about the Teradek beam and the bolt is the fact there's 0 latency. A lot of the stuff that you get on the market for $500-600, don't trust it. It goes in and out, and you're lucky to get 20 feet.
That's why a beam is $5,000, $6,000. That's what you're paying for.
Exactly.
Again, if it's $300 from Best Buy, there's a reason why it's $300 from Best Buy.
I could tell you that we've done a couple events in Times Square, and that's about the worst RF environment you can be on the planet, I think. And we've used several different types of wireless gear there, and have had almost 0 luck with it. Then I purchased the Teradeks that I have now, and both of them, we never had a dropout in Times Square, and that I think that goes to show how robust their product is. But again, they're $8,000 units. You're not going to go buy them from someplace for $300.
No, but you could hire, you could rent freelancer, hire a freelancer.
Rent or even
Correct.
Yeah.
Another
even the
question
cheapest
here.
Teradek, like I own a bolt that was $3,000. And
Another question.
Ever put your primary camera on there?
Never.
I've used that bolt. I know which one that is. Be careful of railroads. For some reason, it doesn't work well around railroads for some reason.
Good to know.
I know.
Probably shouldn't be out on the railroad tracks anyway.
Well, we do events. It's funny, like you do events at places that run right by it. Like, for instance, we have issues at a place called Columbia Station in Phoenixville. They're right there they're an old railroad station when we do mitzvahs or weddings. You'll be lucky to get 5 feet, and it just keeps dropping out. You'll never get the 2 blue lights to say you're heavy on it. I'm just trying to put out information, so if somebody has another idea of coming stuff, we've bought tons of stuff and thrown out tons of stuff. Again, we just found that the Teradek stuff works for us, and I think you can call either Chad or Brad or myself. We'll be happy to rent them to you, I believe, because they're just sitting on the shelf and we're not using them.
Thank you, guys.
We had other questions. We had one here from Randy Wheeler. I like this one. It's a really technical question. What about sorry, what about Sony JVC camcorders that have built-in RTMP/RTMPS streaming that don't require a computer to stream for single camera shoots? I'm going to assume you guys know what those acronyms mean. And yeah, whoever wants to dive in on that, feel free.
If it's on a prosumer camera, you get what you pay for. Again, it may work, it may not. Even on the $30,000 P2 broadcast cameras, P2 has it. Panasonic, what they call P2 Cloud. Almost nobody uses it because, again, you got one dongle in there. I consider even on a broadcast camera, it's just consumer grade. I don't like it, and I won't use it. It's just not stable.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, and again, you're sticking a single cellular modem in there, and if you're in a crowd, you're dead in the water.
And I'm old school. I don't like combining things. It's kind of like combining a TV and a DVD player on the same thing. What do you do when a DVD player goes bad? You got this thing sitting below the TV that you can't use. And also, when you're actually doing the same thing with both of them, what are you going to choose? You're going to choose to take the shot, or are you going to choose to fix the issue while you're not streaming out from there?
Gotcha. Makes sense. So we have some questions about a couple things about software, more software and hardware. Craig Davidia, let's see what's he asking about. Conrex, right? CONREX, good or bad? And then he also is asking if any panel members would be willing to be a compensated resource for college media arts program venturing into streaming. So
I'm willing to be compensated.
I'm always willing to be compensated.
But Conrex, is that something anybody's heard of?
Not familiar with that.
Is that a software?
I'm assuming it's software because he's asking about Conrex and then OBS, which we already pretty much covered.
I've never heard of Conrex.
Neither have I, so that says something about it right there.
And then, so well, if Craig, if you're still on there, if you want to confirm that name, we'll check it for you. Somebody else asked about Sling as a product, like Sling Studio, I guess.
I've seen a lot of high schools that use this for streaming some of their games and stuff. I don't know how reliable it is. I've never used it, but I have seen it on the sidelines at a lot of high school football games.
It mostly works on the wireless. It's I'd say high-end prosumer. It can work, but if I was getting paid for a job, I wouldn't use it. If high school's using it, they're streaming it. It's a lot of it's wireless HDMI. It can work pretty decent, but again, if it takes a dump, they're just losing that. If I'm broadcasting out for something I'm paid on, I'm seriously not using that.
And to spin off of that, the question before that, the Comrex and this and that, and the camera with the dongle. My experience and my advice is if you're going to be streaming, have your product that you're going to be capturing and mixing your show, and make that one product, and have your encoding a whole nother world, because you want that separation so that if you do run into situations, and a perfect example is, I'm sure that Brad and you guys are in the same boat. In my truck, I have a complete total redundancy on my cameras 1, 2, 3, and 4, and even my replay system, and an audio feed, master audio feed from my board that goes to a separate switcher. It happens to be just a Blackmagic small little switcher. It's an 8-channel switcher, so that if my system fails, I literally just switch from my main feed from my main system on that Blackmagic to one of my cameras if I have to reboot or something goes down, and that's feeding my encoders. Because anytime you're going to, and this is probably where I'm always uncomfortable when it comes to a software product doing everything. Now, I own TriCasters, okay? But I don't stream using the TriCaster for that exact purpose right there. So that because, if for some reason the TriCaster goes down, everything's down. If I have some type of backup, even if it's a single camera feed to something, if you package all of that as one thing, so I'm switching, I'm bringing my cameras, I'm doing everything on that, and within that same computer system is my streaming. In my mind, I think you're playing Russian roulette with the production that you're doing. So I know that kind of encompasses some of those other things. One of the reasons why I wouldn't be comfortable with using a camera to stream at the same time as well. Now, obviously, if you're doing a single camera shoot, you're screwed either way. But whenever possible, try and keep those things separate.
Okay. I think we can move on to another question here. We had another question from Mr. Nick Lang. Once again here, Nick wanted to know, what is the best way to stream from a gimbal to act as a virtual tour guide for a client? So, yeah, gimbal tour guide for a client. How do you do that? How would you do that?
This is, real estate specifically is what he's trying to do.
Well, if I was going from a gimbal to something to stream live, first of all, that's where I would use a wireless product in that situation to shoot from the gimbal to another device and then streaming. That's how I would do it. But it all depends. I mean, it depends. If you're walking through a house, you don't want somebody dragging a cable behind you. It's easier to use the wireless and stuff like that. But you're going to get into situations with walls and things like that. So I don't know that shooting, particularly real estate, as a live stream is a good option either way.
I have another question, and I guess this is from Kevin, and he's asking about how are viewer hours calculated. So I guess that would be kind of a question related to maybe the hosts that are charging, by bit rate or by hour for hosting the content.
I mean, a service like Vimeo will tell you how many viewers, and most of the software will tell you, like Facebook Live's doing now, how many people are watching. You don't get charged per viewer typically from anything I've seen, or bit rate for the streaming. Usually that's part of your flat fee that you pay for your service.
Well, that depends. Different ones work for different ways. Some of them charge for viewers. Some of them charge for how much gigabytes you use. So it really just depends on whose platform you're on.
I'm not seeing any. I think we've hit all of the questions that I'm seeing, John.
From John Bell. John Bell wanted to know, will 4K cellular change the quality of service?
It has already. If you're the LiveView 600 can do HVAC 4K. You can't do as much as I would like yet, but you could like if you're doing vMix with the 4K program and you're bringing 2 or 3 4K cameras into that, and you're taking the out to the to it, and you're doing HVAC, it can. The problem is most people on the receiving end can't not receive the signal, so it downgrades to 1080 anyhow. So the purpose of it really isn't quite there yet. In fact, most streaming's at 720, not even 1080.
Makes sense. Okay. All right. Well, guys, I think we've really worked through a lot of our questions and everything. I think we've filled about 90 minutes. I think we did really well. I think we can go ahead and wrap this up now.
Do we want to have him go around for kind of closing remarks, maybe, from everybody quick, and then
why don't we just do a little around the room, and then I'll wrap it up at the end, guys. But we'll start with Chad, just like we did before. We'll do a little close out, and then I'll bring it home. So why don't you go ahead, Chad?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on this panel. I really appreciate it. I wouldn't consider myself an expert. I just love what I do and go to work every day when I can, other than right now. But again, thanks for everything. And if anybody has any questions or anything, you can always give me a call. And if you get into projects that are bigger than what your typical portfolio is, give us a call, because that's why we're here. Is to be able to provide those services as well. But thanks, guys, for having me.
Thanks again. My name is Jim Batty. I appreciate you. Thank you for bringing me in for this. Same as Chad. If you need us, give us a call. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Don't be afraid to call us before you meet with the client. If the client wants to take and actually do a live stream of some sort, pick up the phone and call us ahead of time. We can give you some ins and outs to do and questions to ask. And I'm sure Chad or the other gentleman there would also want to come. If you want to bring us on the walk, we can work for you. We're a B2B. We work for other people all the time. I can go through the list. Most of the people here we've worked for. So just don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call. It's all about a good camaraderie for being a member of the GPVA. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with the guys. I would tell you, never turn down a job if it's over your head. Reach out to one of the people who, myself or Chad or anybody that actually has the equipment and stuff, because we do a lot of live streaming. There's other people in GPVA that I live stream for. You don't want to leave money on the table, but you don't want to say, yeah, I can do it, and reach out a couple of DSLRs. We didn't mention that. That's the one product I don't like streaming with is a DSLR. I still think you need a video camera or a broadcast camera. A DSLR going through HDMI, I think, is a disaster waiting to happen.
Just a quick add on that. I'm sorry, just a quick add on that. I have never once done anything where somebody wanted to use a DSLR car on our production where we had to have audio sync with that. They've never been in sync ever. So just and also on Jim and Brad's comment there, we have customers that we go to and people that we go to when the projects are too big for us as well. So it's not, looking to somebody to help you out doesn't mean that you guys aren't, good in your industry. I do it all the time. I have people that I go to all the time that I say, hey, I can't handle this project, but let's work on it together. You guys have the equipment. You guys got the gear. Give me a consulting fee and let me work on it or whatever. So, it all comes full circle for everybody.
And,
Eric?
thanks for having me on the panel. I appreciate it. A lot of this stuff I'm self-taught with. I learned watching YouTube videos and Googling and trial and a lot of error, unfortunately. So some of the stuff I do on a small scale, but I do call some of the people, that were listed above me for help and for jobs, because it is an investment of gear, cables. This is not something you can just run out with, an HDMI cable and a camera and a laptop. You do need to have backup. You do need to be prepared, and you do need to do your homework and really try to learn the ins and outs of these things. But thanks again. If everybody has questions, feel free to reach out to me as well.
Okay, thanks for having me. And I just thought, with what everybody else was saying, it's a lot of knowing where your troubleshooting is going to be, where your trouble spots are. You treat it a lot like I do a lot of regular shooting and lighting as well, and you treat it like any other job where you just think ahead, where am I going to have issues and what can I have solved ahead of time, or what can I have to bring into place quickly to fix my issues. And you can call any of us with questions about that. What kind of trouble spots and what kind of backups can I have on hand to fix problems in the field? Because that's probably the most intense thing about it, is like fix things go wrong, like audio issues that I'm having now.
I'll let John have the last word as the current president. Thanks again to the panel for their time today, and for the last couple days. We were doing a little rehearsal earlier this week, so they gave their time for that. And obviously, a lot of us aren't going anywhere right now, so it's not that much out of. But still, we appreciate them taking time away from their family and to speak to us again. It's a difficult time that we're in right now, and we're all in it, and we're all stressed and kind of no direction for when this is going to end for us. But as a community for video here in Philadelphia, that's what we're here for. Our videography association's been around for over 20 years, and I don't think we're going anywhere. So use us as a resource to help to share the information that you have as you get it, and we hope to be back strong when this is all done. And I'll leave it to John to wrap us up.
Right. Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank the panel. I want to thank Tom. I want to thank Justin. I want to thank everybody involved in this. We've never done a live stream panel like this before. This was kind of new for us, obviously with COVID and everything, so this was really exciting. I'm really happy with how this went and how it all came together. I really enjoyed the subject content as a personal note. I was kind of enjoying all those gearhead questions. But this has been awesome. I really enjoy this. I'm really looking forward to doing some more of these on different subjects. I think we discussed some audio subjects and some marketing subjects. So we have some other fun stuff coming out of our Facebook page over the next couple of months. So stay tuned. Please give the GPVA page a nice like. Join our Facebook group. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Especially with all the social distancing going on, we are definitely all over the social medias these days. So thank you all so much for coming. This was awesome. If you have any questions or anything else, feel free to leave some stuff in the comments. We'll probably follow up that a little bit later. And thank you guys so much. We'll leave this up on the GPVA page forever. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.